恭敬大德圣听，为此法会，自一切众生，经转妙法轮，教导我们如何了生脱死离苦得乐，速成速成无生。Build the Sangha with great virtue out of compassion for the sake of this assembly and all living beings. Please turn the wonderful Dharma wheel to teach us how to leave suffering and attain bliss, and end birth and death, and quickly realize non-birth.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to the blessed, noble and perfectly enlightened one. Namo sadanto suceto ye alahati sanmiao sanbuto che. 无上甚深微妙法，百千万劫难遭遇。我今见闻得受持，愿解如来真实义。Supreme and wondrous Dharma, subtle and profound, rarely is encountered, even in a billion eons. But now we see and hear it and accept it reverently. May we truly understand the Buddha's actual meaning. Namo, quelling disasters, lengthening life, Medicine Master Buddha. 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 Medicine Master does come one, Medicine Master does come one, Medicine Master does come one, Medicine Master does come one. Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Rainbow Master, and all good knowing advisors, welcome back. Namaste. This is Sutra lecture number 127. Yes, number 127. Okay, so today we are continuing as usual. Okay, before I start, as usual, if you have any questions, like Mr. Tai, you please, like he has already typed into the chat box, please do that, or unmute your mic when you think it's a suitable time, which is all the time, and ask your question. All right. So far, we have the questions. I have a question from last week, which I didn't answer, which is what is returning the hearing within? The Guanyin method as from the Shurangama Sutra. What does it mean? And then we have a question about the plaques or the paives during Dharma assemblies. And then there's a question about the significance of 3 steps, 1 bow. What is the meaning? Why is it not practiced in Theravada Buddhism? Okay, So far, those are the questions. And also, if anyone wants to bring up the topic of the cave temple that is under threat of being evicted, I've been told that that's still a hot topic that a lot of people like to talk about, which I have no idea because no one talks to me. So if you have any questions, you can bring that up too about that. Okay. All right. So the last few weeks, what have we been discussing? We have been discussing about mindfulness of the Buddha, Dharma, and the Sangha. This is also known as the practice of recollection. If any of you practice Pure Land, that's the first part that you see on your screen. That's called mindfulness of the Buddha. The Pure Land practice comes from here. It's derived from here. Depending on the Buddhist school, there are usually 6 recollections. Okay, and you start with the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Sometimes it goes up to 10. But for the purpose of our exploration of loving kindness, okay, so we're exploring loving kindness, and the practice of loving kindness begins by developing loving kindness for yourself. So you wish for yourself to be happy, but it's more than just mere wishing. You develop loving kindness by recognizing the good qualities in you. And if you can do that well, you never get depressed. Why? Because you see the goodness in yourself. And loving kindness is the only, I'm not sure weapon is the right word, is the only tool, is the only weapon, yeah, I guess weapon, that monks have to protect ourselves. You see, traditionally, monks would not stay in one place for more than 3 days, so as to not develop a relationship with the lay people. And they would sleep out in places like cemeteries, in the forest, where it's surrounded by all kinds of poisonous insects, creatures, dangerous animals, and even spirits that are not Buddhist friendly or monk friendly. So the only way a monk can protect himself is by developing loving kindness. No other thing. No. Yeah. So that's why loving kindness is really important. And loving kindness is the key to getting into the first dhyana, the first stage of concentration, where depending on different sources, Shufu at different times, he would say your breathing would stop in the first dhyana. At other times, he would say your pulse would stop. It doesn't make any difference. Once you get to the first dhyana, that's what's most important. If you think about it, while you're meditating, you're never going to get into the dhyana because your mind is going to, how you say, it just works against you. So don't think about it. Okay. Once you have a thought, oh, am I still breathing, or is my pulse, my heart still beating? That's it. You are very, very far away from the first dhyana. Okay, so that's why loving kindness is important, and you start with yourself, because only when you can develop loving kindness for yourself, only when you're happy, can you then develop loving kindness for other living beings. And after that, then you enter dhyana. Okay, without it, no dhyana. So even if you recite the Buddha's name, it's very, very hard to recite until you get to a point where your mind is pure. All right. Okay. So mindfulness or recollection. What is mindfulness? I've been talking a lot about mindfulness and taking for granted that you all know what mindfulness is. So I thought I'll take a short one step back and explain about mindfulness. Okay. I've given the Sanskrit in brackets so you can look it up if anyone is interested. Mindfulness itself is recollection because it arises again and again. So that's why when you recite the Buddha's name, it's again and again. Or when you're counting your breath, or you're recollecting your own virtues, that's mindfulness. And it has the ability for the practitioner to remain focused on a chosen object without forgetfulness or distraction. What is forgetfulness or distraction? Well, you're sitting there and suddenly you hear a sound and it comes from your stomach and you start thinking about, oh, is it lunchtime or what am I going to eat for lunch? That's forgetfulness or distraction. So you don't want that. Or you're counting your breath. You breathe in, you breathe out, 1. You breathe in, you breathe out, 2. You breathe in, you breathe out, 3. And then you breathe in and then you start thinking about your vacation that you had or planning about your upcoming vacation. Where you're going to go, how much money you're going to spend, how long. And before you know it, you forget what number you're on. Okay. So proper mindfulness will prevent these things from happening. So what else is mindfulness? Okay, this is very interesting because for all of you who practice the Pure Land method, mindfulness is a wholesome state of mind that occurs together. Okay, what does occurs together mean? It means when one of these 5 appear, the rest will appear together. So when you do your Pure Land practice, when you recite the Buddha's name, you want to make sure how you're doing it properly. Well, you have the aspiration or your intention. You know why you are doing, why you know why you're doing what you're doing. Okay, and that leads to a desire to act. Okay, they're the same thing. You are very clear. Number 2, you have the determination or the resolve. You're not doing it half-heartedly. You want to recite for half an hour, but after 5 minutes you get up and do something else. That doesn't happen. You have good mindfulness or memory. You can constantly dwell on the subject. You have good concentration. And finally, you have good wisdom or cognition. So all these 5 has to be around. So it's not just, some people I know, they have a Buddha counter. Okay, it's a little thing that helps you keep count of the number of times you recite. And they recite while watching TV, for example. And if you want to know if that's a proper practice or not, you ask yourself, do you have these 5? Actually, that question was asked before. I think, who was it? Was it Sharon who asked? Is Sharon here? Let me see. No, she's not. Okay. But I think she asked the question, is that proper? So you have to have these 5 things present. What else about mindfulness? Mindfulness is crucial to all types of formal meditative practice. There you go, including Pure Land, because of its role in bringing clarity to the perceptual process. Okay, so your mind is clear. You're not sitting there half dreaming or half asleep. Mindfulness leaves the mind in a purely receptive state that inhibits the unwholesome responses to sensory stimuli such as greed, hatred, and delusion. Okay, so mindfulness helps suppress what is known as the 3 poisons, and we'll see that soon when we talk about mindfulness of the Sangha, or rather continue our discussion about mindfulness of the Sangha. And then lastly, mindfulness also contributes to control of the mind. This is the monkey mind. By eliminating distraction and helping the meditator gain mastery of his or her thought processes. Okay? All right. So one of the questions is about 3 steps one bow. 3 steps one bow is an excellent way of meditating, and we'll come to that. Okay? All right. So, mindfulness of the Sangha. We have looked at mindfulness of the Buddha, which is Pure Land practice, and then, but not the Pure Land practice that everyone thinks Pure Land practice is. Most people have the idea that Pure Land practice is just reciting the Buddha's name. Hopefully, by now, you realize that it is a lot more than that. Okay, and you can read the 6 Petra Sutra to understand more, or Bodhidharma sermons, or Shufu's commentaries to understand more about mindfulness of the Buddha. And then we talk about mindfulness of the Dharma and all the benefits that the Dharma provides us. Today, we're going to go into mindfulness of the Sangha. Yes, Catherine, yes, you can always ask a question. Would you like to ask it now?
Yes, if you don't mind, Dharma Master, since this is the first time I'm attending your talk, I don't know your protocol, so I
No
just ask.
protocol, just ask, yes.
Okay. When you talk of this mindfulness, sorry, if I ask, my question is silly. Okay. When you talk of mindfulness, there must be an object of mindfulness, right? Dharma Master?
An object for mindfulness, yes.
Yeah. So all along we have been explaining that we have to be mindful of this. So are you talking of the what they call anapanasati, the mindfulness of the breath?
Yes, that is included in mindfulness or recollection, correct.
Okay. So now what you are sharing here is mindfulness on an embracive level, whereby it includes everything as long as there's an object of what they call object of mindfulness.
Yes, to be mindful, you need to have an object for the mindfulness. So part of the six, so when you mention mindfulness of the breath, that part of the six recollections or the six mindfulness. So
Yeah.
our topic for today is to be mindful of the Sangha, which means instead of contemplating the breathing, you can be contemplating the qualities of the Sangha instead.
Oh, okay, okay. So your mindfulness tonight is to confine to the meditation, or rather mindfulness of the Sangha. Am I right?
Yes. So
Oh,
why
I
we are
see. Okay.
so why we are doing this is because, like I mentioned just now, our actual topic is about developing loving kindness. And developing loving kindness, you start with developing loving kindness for yourself. And one of the best ways to develop loving kindness for yourself is to recognize all the good things in your life that you have done, either past life or this life. And so being close to the Buddha, for example, having the Buddha as your teacher, but you have to know who the Buddha is. So that was mindfulness of the Buddha. And then we did mindfulness of the Dharma and the qualities of the Dharma. And today we are exploring mindfulness of the Sangha, because we shall soon see why in the next few slides. Yeah,
I see. Okay. Because you also at the same time, Dharma Master, you also at the same time mentioned a few times just now, with reference to the what they call Pure Land. Okay.
correct.
So from my understanding is Pure Land is mindfulness of Amitabha Buddha.
Correct.
Am I right? So in other words,
not only, but the main point, yes.
the main point, yes, because that is recitation of Amitabha Buddha's name, okay, in the Pure Land practice. That's what I
Yes.
understand. Maybe I may be wrong here.
No, correct. You're correct. So what was your question again? Or
No,
was that your
you
question?
mentioned a few times just now on the Pure Land. So when you mentioned a few times on the Pure Land means with reference, the mindfulness is with reference to Amitabha Buddha. Am I right?
Correct. If you're practicing the Pure Land method, yes.
Yes. And Amitabha Buddha becomes the object of meditation.
Yes and no.
I wouldn't
But
say meditation. Maybe okay, when you are reciting, means you have to be mindful of Amitabha Buddha. But when you are in meditation, can Amitabha Buddha becomes your object of meditation? That
yes,
is
you
my
can.
question.
Yeah,
Can
you can. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Amitabha.
Okay. All right. Okay, let's go on then. Good questions. Mindfulness of the Sangha. Okay, so this is from the Visuddhimagga, which is the path to purification. There's a verse that says, "Now when a man is wise or woman, his constant task will surely be this recollection of the Sangha, blessed with such mighty potency." Okay, why do they say that? All right. In the Mahaprajnaparamita Shastra, it said, okay, Mahaprajnaparamita means the great, the title means the great treatise on wisdom. And it is very great indeed because it's very thick. It's one of the great works in Mahayana, and it was written or compiled by Venerable Nagarjuna, the Bodhisattva Nagarjuna. So it says, when a practitioner is devoted to this recollection of the Sangha, he is respectful and deferential towards the Sangha. He attains fullness of faith and so on. He has much happiness and bliss. He conquers fear and dread. He is able to endure pain. He comes to feel as if he were living in the Sangha's presence. And in his body, when the recollection of the Sangha's special qualities dwells in it, becomes as worthy of veneration as an uposatha house where the Sangha has met. Uposatha usually means the 8 precepts. but it can also mean observance of the precepts. So the last sentence is interesting because Bodhidharma says that it says what you call a Sangharama or a monastery is actually the body, because it is the body that it is. The body is where you actually practice. So most people think, oh, when I go to the temple, when I go to the monastery, then they become extra good in front of the Buddha. They put on a good show and they try to meditate. But after they leave the monastery, they revert back to their old selves. But if you look at it, when you are in the monastery as well, where are you practicing? It is within the body itself. It's not outside of the body. The external conditions may change, but irrespective of where you are, if you practice well, it is always within the body. So the Bodhidharma says that look at the body as the monastery, as the temple. And then Venerable Nagarjuna says on that occasion, which is recollecting the Sangha, the practitioner's mind is not obsessed by greed or obsessed by hate or obsessed by delusion. His mind has rectitude on that occasion, being inspired by the Sangha. So when he has suppressed the hindrances in the way already described, the dhyana factors or excess concentration arise in a single conscious moment. Okay, what is the last line? What is excess concentration in regard to the dhyana factors? Excess concentration is the beginning of very, very deep concentration. You're not there yet, but you are able to sustain your concentration without getting distracted. You haven't, from excess, you get into the absorption. As the name suggests, you get absorbed into the dhyana and you can stay there. When you get into absorption, and you're in the first dhyana, you can sit for at least 7 days without moving, without eating, without having to do anything. You can just sit for 7 days and feel like it's nothing at all. Okay, but if you're in excess concentration, you won't be able to do that yet. You feel like you can, but not yet, because your concentration isn't that deep. Okay. So he says his mind tends towards the attainment of the Sangha's special qualities. When he encounters an opportunity for transgression, he has awareness of conscience and shame as vividly as if he were face to face with the Sangha. And if he penetrates no higher, he is at least headed for a happy destiny. That means that if you die, okay, and this is the level that this is only the level you get to, you will definitely be born in a good destination. So what is awareness of conscience and shame as vividly as he were aware, as if he were face to face with the Sangha? Okay, before I became a monk and I used to drive, I was a very impatient driver. And anyone who drives in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, sometimes may understand, because not everyone is a good driver. They all think they are, like me. I think I'm a very good driver and everyone else are lousy drivers. So I would always lose my patience when I'm driving. And one day I started having something that hangs from the rearview mirror that has Kuan Yin Pusat on it. So to try to help myself be more patient on the road, I would imagine that Kuan Yin Pusat is sitting next to me, and in front of Kuan Yin, I wouldn't dare get angry, or impatient, something like that. Okay, so when you recollect the Sangha well, then you remind yourself of your own virtue, and you would not transgress, and you would not do anything wrong. Something like that. Okay. So now let's look at a verse that is commonly recited. Okay, is this? It says the Sangha of the Buddha is completely endowed with the 5 pure skandhas. What are the 5 pure skandhas? The discipline skandha, the concentration skandha, the wisdom skandha, the deliverance skandha, and the knowledge and vision of deliverance skandha. For normal people, okay, we have the 5 skandhas, which are known as form, feeling, formation, consciousness, and let me see, what is it? What are the 5 forms? Okay, you all can on Google. Okay, wait, the 5 skandhas. Okay, what do the 5 skandhas represent? The 5 skandhas represent our body and our mind, as well as the world. But as far as we are concerned, from an existential point of view, as being in feeling alive, feeling who you think you are, is our body and our mind. Okay. When it says the Sangha of the Buddha is endowed with the 5 pure skandhas, we covered this when we talked about the Buddha. It means that they have the 5 skandhas but without outflows. Okay, so these are the Sangha at the sage level. They're not the ordinary Sangha, but the sagely Sangha. So what is the 5 skandhas without outflows? The easiest way to explain, okay, is that they no longer accumulate. Without outflows means no accumulation happens anymore. And what do they not accumulate? Karma. They have stopped creating new karma. Okay, so when you have the skandhas without outflows, the 5 pure skandhas, then you no longer create new karma. All right? Okay. Then the Sangha also includes the 4 pairs of individuals, or the 8 individuals. We'll come to that. It is worthy of offerings, worthy of hospitality, worthy of veneration. It is the supreme field of merit for the world. So what do they say that about the Sangha? Okay, you'll look at the underlying elements one by one. Okay, so Melinda has helped. She says the 5 skandhas are form, feeling, connection, formation, and consciousness. Yes. How do the 5 skandhas feel like? Well, your body and your thoughts. Those are the 5 skandhas. Okay. What are the 4 pairs? Okay, the 4 pairs are basically the 4 levels of arhats. Okay, but broken into pre and post. Pre and post. Yeah, kind of like pre-arhat. And yeah. So the first pair, okay, is the first fruit or stream enterer. You're either a candidate for the first fruit, that means you're close to achieving to be a stream enterer or first stage arhat, but you're not there yet. Then when you achieve the first stage arhat, then these two become the first pair. So it's the same formula for the second, which is second stage arhat or once returner. They are called once returner because they get reborn once more in the human realm. And then the third stage arhat, also known as non-returner, because they get reborn once, but not in the human realm. That means they ascend into the heavens. I forgot to mention about the stream enterer. Okay, so if you're first stage arhat, okay, you're full-fledged first stage arhat, what happens is you have up to 7 rebirths remaining. It's not fixed. It doesn't mean that all first stage arhats have to undergo 7 births, but within 7 births, you would have ended birth and death. All right, yeah, because you from a first stage arhat, it doesn't mean you have to become a second or third stage arhat. You can skip the levels. Some people don't even have to be a first stage arhat to become a second or third stage arhat. You can do it the instant way and go to the second or third, probably even the fourth directly. Yeah, and then finally you have the arhat, which is no other rebirth. Okay, the word arhat literally means one worthy of respect. Okay, arhat is a Sanskrit term. What makes them arhats? Well, if you are first stage arhat, okay, there's something known as the 10 fetters, or the 10 things that bind us. Also, the 10 can be called 10 levels of ignorance. So if you are first stage arhat, okay, you are free from, number 1, the view of identity or the belief that there is an unchanging self or soul in the 5 impermanent skandhas. So you don't see the body and your mind, your thoughts, as you anymore. Okay, you don't see that there's a life after life. You know that it's not you in the past life, and it's not you in your next life. The you now is an impermanent you. It's going to disappear. You know, you can hold on to it all you want. It's going to disappear. and there's no such thing as a soul. And this is not an intellectual understanding that you get from books. This is a knowing that you know for yourself. What kind of knowing? You just know something. Like when you look at the sky and you know it's blue, someone tells you it's gray, you're not straight because you know for yourself. When you wake up from a dream and you know you're no longer dreaming, it's that kind of knowing. You just know. Number two, you are free from attachment to rites and rituals. This is a very important wrong view to be free of. That means you don't perform any ceremonies thinking that just performing the ceremony alone will has an efficacious nature. What kind of ceremonies? Well, there are a lot of ceremonies, all kinds of rituals that people attach to the form without quite understanding the how to involve themselves or how to transform themselves. Basically, the ceremony is just a tool. So, for example, like 3 steps 1 bow, that can be known as a ritual. For example, if you want to classify it that way, it won't be 100% right, but it won't be 100% wrong either. But it is what you bring to the 3 steps 1 bow that makes the difference, not the 3 steps 1 bow in itself. Okay, and a stream enterer no longer has any doubt about the teachings. Okay, so that's very important about doubt, because sometimes there's a misunderstanding that having no doubt means having no questions. But that's not true at all. Having no doubt means that you fully trust in the Dharma, if we are talking about the Dharma here, because let's talk about restrict it to the Dharma. A stream enterer has no doubt that everything the Buddha says is true. Why? Because once you have overcome these 3 levels of ignorance, or known as the 3 fetters, you just know it's true. You have full faith in the Buddha. But it doesn't mean you understand everything the Buddha teaches. So you still have to ask questions. Okay? So let me see. Yes. Hakim.
The first line identity view, does the unchanging self or soul, does it mean is it the Buddha nature?
No, it does not refer to the Buddha nature. It refers to what people, especially in other religions, but it is more a question of how we see our existence. So a lot of Buddhists have this understanding that from life to life, like in the next life, is still going to be me. They think that there's a me, there's a personality that's going to carry from life to life. But just as how in this life you have no recollection of who you were in your past life, you could have been an animal, you could have been a man, a woman, you could have been in the heavens, you could have been in the hells. That person is not you. But we don't know that. So we assume that who we are now is going to carry on into who we are going to be. That our personality carries forward. But that doesn't happen, because in your next life, you have forgotten everything. The only thing that you carry on from life to life are your karmic habits. What are your karmic habits? Okay, this is very important when it comes to karmic habits, because it is the key to practice. How to practice well, and why. I'm going to spend a few minutes on this, because it's also connected to number 2, which is attachments to rites and rituals. Okay, so what happens when you get reborn? Okay, look at little children. Okay, when children, as they are growing up, they all have different personalities. It's not like they learn or absorb the personalities from their families. Sometimes some traits are like that, but you will have children from the same family having very, very different personalities. Where do these personalities come from? From their past lives, from their karma. You are who you are. Those habits develop as your personality. Okay, I'm going to mute you for now. And when you want to ask again, you can unmute yourself. So those karmic habits that carry across make us who we are. Sometimes we like to talk. Sometimes we are very critical of people. Some people are prone to anger. Some people are very kind. You are born that way. You are programmed to be that way. It is not a matter of choice. That may come later with practice, but as they say, a leopard can't change his spots, or you can't teach an old dog new tricks. They have those kind of sayings. Why? Because it's very true. Your personality is your personality. And, for people who are married and you wish your wife or your husband were different, you realize how difficult it is to change. Even for yourself. Don't talk about other people, just yourself. So that is what carries on. So the whole point of practice is to transform yourself to the point that you don't have to work at the practice anymore and you embody the practice. So for example, like you take the precepts and say the precepts against killing. And let's talk about being a vegetarian. If you take the precepts and you find it very hard to stop eating meat, and after taking the precepts, you stop eating meat, but all the time you are thinking about how much you miss meat, and you don't develop any compassion for animals and living beings. You don't recognize that they also want to live. And just as how you want a long, healthy life for yourself, it doesn't make sense to build a long, healthy life on having animals die to fulfill that aim. Just doesn't make sense. So you develop compassion. The first person doesn't develop compassion. They don't understand the spirit of taking the precepts. All they know is that they force themselves not to eat meat, and they miss meat and seafood and fish and all those things all the time. Okay, and they're constantly thinking about the food that they miss. No compassion, no loving kindness developed for animals. In their next life, guess what happens? Their habit of subjecting themselves to hardship is still there, but when it comes to animals, they have not advanced a single bit. They still have not developed any compassion. Whereas, for someone who really enjoys eating, and then they take the 5 precepts, and throughout their lives as they're practicing being a vegetarian, from really, 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 really missing their old food habits, they start to develop compassion. They start to see animals as living beings who can feel pain, who also want to live, and they develop a genuine compassion and loving kindness to all living creatures. And they see that it's really unfair. If they want long life, why can't they provide long life to other living creatures as well? That's only fair. And then they learn about rebirth, and they learn that animals can be humans can become animals, animals can become humans. It's not fixed. So over time, they have transformed to where being a vegetarian becomes their preferred choice. It is no longer a struggle, and they have transformed themselves and they have embodied the precept against killing or no harming. Now that will continue in your next life, that habit, without you realizing it, because it becomes you. That habit carries along, and in your next life, you don't have to work too hard for that habit to come up again. Naturally, you will have an affinity with eating less meat or being fully vegetarian. So by understanding the point of practice and by transforming yourself, life after life, you get closer to the goal of ending birth and death or going to the Pure Land. But if you don't understand that, and you treat, instead of transforming your bad habits, you have the wrong view that you work very hard You participate in a lot of fa hui. You do a lot of bowing, thinking that just by doing that alone is good enough. You don't change your habits at all. You don't transform your unwholesome karma into wholesome karma. Then in your next life, you may have planted very good affinities with the Dharma, but your bad habits still remain. So when you're born again with your bad habits, and you still start from zero or from where you were before instead of making progress. Okay, so that's very, very important. All right, so there's no self that carries on, there's no personality, but what carries on is who you transform yourself to be, the habits, the wholesome habits that you want to transform. So you have to be, basically you have to be who you want to be in your next life. You have to act like it now. You want to be like a bodhisattva, then you have to act like a bodhisattva until it becomes second nature. Then your practice bears fruit in your next life. All right. Okay. Whether our ceremonies are classified as rites and rituals, yes, it all depends on your mindset, and we'll come to that. Okay. All right. So if okay, let's keep some questions for later. Okay, how about that, Catherine? Let me get through this the next two slides, and then we can come back to the questions. Okay. So a second stage arhat, or once returner, he has eliminated the first three. Okay, but there are two more, which is sensual desire and ill will, that he has not eliminated but has suppressed to a great deal. That means they don't really bother him anymore, but there are still traces. That means he still has thoughts about that, but not to the degree as for normal people. Okay, and then when you get to the third stage arhat, the third stage arhat is free from sensual desire and ill will. So before, okay, second stage arhat, you still have a bit of sensual desire and ill will, but at the third stage arhat, you are free from it. No more animosity, no more sensual desire. And why are we covering this for the arhat? Well, because this is the right time, and because this question was asked, I don't know, maybe was it a year ago, by Hilda. I think it was Hilda. Yeah. So I'm just covering it in brief today. And finally, if you're an arhat, what are the final 5 fetters that you have eliminated? Okay. So attachment to the dhyanas, that means the extreme joy and bliss that you get from your meditation, you have overcome it. You're no longer attached to that. You have overcome your attachment to the 4 formless absorptions. What are the 4 formless absorptions? Okay, so in terms of like official stages of concentration, there are the 4 dhyanas, or the 4 form base absorptions, and then above that there is 4 more, and those are the 4 formless absorptions. And when we were looking at the heavens, it corresponds to these 8. Some of the heavens correspond to these 8 meditative states. Conceit, no more restlessness, and number 10, no longer any ignorance. So these are the 4 pairs of individuals, or the 8 classes of individuals, otherwise known as the noble Sangha. Okay, so let's see the time. We are at 10:30 p.m. here in Malaysia. Okay, so let's go through the questions. Okay, so from last week, all right, Ron had a question about what is returning the hearing within mean. So returning the hearing is the method that Kuan Yin Pusat explained in the Shurangama Sutra. And in the Shurangama Sutra, Kuan Yin says that this is the most, Kuan Yin explained his method, and another bodhisattva, I believe, okay, but that's a detail. in the end, the principle is that that's the most suitable method for living beings in the Saha world in this period, meaning all of us. So what does it mean to return the hearing within? Okay, it means you no longer pay attention to what's happening outside, but you pay attention to inside. So now if you pay attention to your ears, you're all listening to me, all right? But there's another form of listening, which is when you listen to yourself. It's kind of like, you sometimes hear people say, quiet, 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 I'm trying to think, because why? You want to pay attention to the thoughts in your mind. Apparently, different people do it differently. Some people have a voice in their minds, and some people do not. Maybe it's interesting to ask everyone online how you think. You can just type into the chat box. Because I never knew that some people don't have an inner voice. You can talk to yourself, that inner voice. But regardless of whether you have an inner voice or not, when you think something over, when you are deliberating something quietly in yourself, how do you listen to yourself? How do you pay attention to what's going on? So is that part of the mind, that the way your mind works in that sense, that means what it, that tells you what it means to be listening to yourself, which is to return the hearing within. Okay, so returning the hearing within means you turn your hearing from the outside to the inside. And it will only make sense if you try it. Until you try it, it doesn't make sense. Or it may not, the words may make sense, but you obviously have no idea because you haven't tried it out yourself. So it's a practice. It's not something to be talked about or to be argued about, because people with different experiences or different approaches will explain it differently. The moment you figure it out for yourself, you don't need anyone else to explain it to you. Okay? But until you do, you might get confused by the different explanations. Yeah. So it's something that you have to put in practice and figure out how to do it for yourself. That's just it. So thanks, Melinda. Melinda said it was Manjushri Bodhisattva who said that Kuan Yin's method is the most suitable for people like us. Okay. All right. Okay. So another question that we have is regarding plaques or paives. So during Dharma assemblies, you go to most Mahayana temples, Chinese Mahayana temples. We have what is known as the Long Life Hall and the Rebirth Hall. In the Long Life Hall is Medicine Master Buddha, and in the Rebirth Hall is Earth Store Bodhisattva. Usually, the normal layout is on the right-hand side of the Buddha Hall is the Long Life Hall, and the left-hand side is the Rebirth Hall. So the name itself is a clue. If you have someone who is sick and you want to help them, the plaque will be put in the Long Life Hall for people who are still around. And for people who have passed on the disease, then it would be in the Rebirth Hall. So let me see, who asked this question again regarding the plaques? Would you mind repeating your question?
I wanted to know what is the benefit and who gets the benefit.
Okay.
Is
So
it Thank you.
Yes. Okay. All right. So what is the purpose? Let's talk about the purpose. The plaques are an expedient way for someone to do something wholesome on behalf of someone else, whether the person is living or no longer around. The plaque, you could usually, in most places, Shofu explained to us that the plaques are a very important way, not just as a form of practice for either for gratitude or for repaying, or which is repaying kindness, gratitude, repaying kindness, or for someone wanting to help other people, but also for a monastery to be self-sustaining in terms of generating money to maintain its overheads. So plaques are an expedient method, which is why they don't exist in, say, Theravada Buddhism, because it was invented as a wonderful. It's not mentioned in the sutras, so it was invented by people as a wonderful method. So what does it do? Okay, you go to a monastery and you pay a certain amount of money to have a plaque up, and the plaque could be for yourself. Okay, it could be for someone who is sick, for example, someone you care about. It could even be for, say, the recent natural disasters happening around the world. Someone may say, "Oh, I want to do something good on behalf of the victims," and so they put up a plaque. It could be that as well. It all depends on your intention and your heart. So what happens is, the plaque is a form of donating money on behalf of the recipient. And for people who are, say, very new, or their sincerity is not quite at the, let's say, okay, there are different levels of sincerity for different people who put up plaques. For someone who's new, they may just pay the money, have the plaque up, and be satisfied that they have done something good. For someone who, say, understands a bit more and wants to do a bit more, they pay money, they put up the plaque, and or for a longer period, which involves more money, but they also do additional things. For example, in front of the plaque, they may recite the Buddha's name, they may recite the sutra. So they are more involved. You can say that their sincerity is greater. So in essence, plaques are a way for you to repay the kindness or to help someone, whether they're still living or not, by doing something good to the monastery, which is donating money. So it doesn't have to be a plaque. It can be printing sutras, for example. It can be donating towards a building fund. It can be other forms like a Dharma host. But plaques are one very popular form for people to help others. Okay, so that's a quick explanation on plaques. There's a question: can you put up plaques for your love, for your pets and dead animals on the road? Yes, you can. Yeah. For the person that puts up plaques for other living beings, is a great way to develop the qualities of a bodhisattva in yourself. And let me see, where am I going with this? At the very least, okay, let's say you put up a plaque for someone. If you are sincere, the whole, not the act of putting up the plaque itself, but the whole process of you wanting to help that person will psychologically transform how you react to that person. So for example, if you have someone you really don't like, and you say you treat the person as a karmic debtor, you say, oh, probably it's because, say if you have a boss that doesn't like you and you're at your wit's end, you don't know what else to do, and then someone says, oh, you can put up a plaque for him, and maybe he's your karmic debtor and you owe him something from a past life. By putting up a plaque, maybe your relationship will improve. You have no idea how it works. It's like magic to you, but you're at your wit's end and you try it. At the very least, because you're willing to, in your heart, for this person that you absolutely do not like and you think does not like you as well, if you can bring yourself to want to benefit this person, to the point of doing a very, very good deed, which is donating money to the temple on his or her behalf, it helps transform your relationship with him in ways that you may not realize. So at the very least, there's that. Yeah. Okay, let me look at the chat box. Isn't turning your hearing inward just introspection? Yes,
Oh,
Ron.
sure. I have
But sustain introspection.
oh, sure.
Yes.
May I follow up on the question on the plaque?
Yes.
Suppose you have a friend who has a illness. I mean, had a stroke, and I was just following what you were saying about putting up a plaque for that person. What kind of plaque would you do? Would you do a long life plaque or a deader plaque?
Okay. I think I'm not sure. I think different monasteries might have different plaques that are available. But what comes to mind is you can do a long life plaque so your friend can recover, and then someone in the same situation might put up a plaque for his friend's debtors instead. They have a different perspective on what's causing the stroke or the illness. Both have the same intention of helping, and this is where when you go to the monastery and you explain to them what's going on, they might be able to give you some options to consider.
Okay. You don't have to put up a plaque only during special Dharma assemblies, right? You can put up a plaque at any time.
Yes, because for example, on the 1st and the 15th, some people put up plaques during the 1st and 15th or for a sustained period of time, like 1 month, 3 months.
Okay. I'll talk to the monastery about what kind of plaque would be applicable to this particular case. And I wouldn't have to tell anybody about, I wouldn't have to notify that person, right? About
If only if you think it might be helpful for the person to know, like to lift their spirits up or something, make them feel better. But yeah, you can do it quietly. That's fine as well.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay.
But if the person is like terminally ill, and they are Buddhist friendly, it would help them to know that good things are being done on their behalf. That would be a good idea. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Now the question about turning your hearing inward. I mean, what's so special about introspection? I mean, I don't see how Guan Yin can turn this inward and then hear all of our voices, all the cries of the world. I mean, isn't that his name?
That's Guan Yin's problem. You haven't started learning how to turn your hearing inwards. Why do you want to comment about?
I don't mean to make fun. I'm sorry. I said it wrong. I didn't mean to cast doubt or cast dispersion on what Guan Yin was doing. But I was thinking that if we turn our hearing inward, it's just introspection, right? It's like,
no.
If you did something and you felt funny about it, you say, "Why did I do that?" Right? That kind of turn your thinking inward, right?
No. It's not just listening to your random thoughts that are happening in your mind. That's not what Guan Yin means. What Guan Yin means, or the method, is about having one object. You sustain your concentration on one thing, not letting your mind run wild and watching a movie. No, you tie your mind down with, say, reciting the Buddha's name or recollection of what we are discussing, recollecting of the Sangha, or reciting the Buddha's name. But it's just that one thing, and you are focusing on that, and eventually by focusing on that, you are no longer focusing on what's happening outside. And then you will come to a point where everything becomes quiet in your mind. Then you take the next step. But you have to get there first. Okay?
Okay.
So you have to try it out. You have to try out the method, and that's the only way you can get into deeper stages of concentration.
Okay, I guess this was written up in the Shurangama Sutra, right? Under
Yes.
the 25, there's a 25 sages, and they chose Guan Ying's technique to be the foremost, right? So
Correct.
I should read that and it to understand it better. Okay, I'll do that. I mean, I misunderstood and thought that it was just introspection, Okay.
No. It's not introspection as how you think it is. Yeah, it's the same word, introspection, but it is sustained concentration on only one object, which means your mind does not waver. Okay, and Guan Yin does that to hear everyone. Why? So she knows who needs help. All right. So say if you are taking care of children in a nursery, you want to be able to hear if any child needs help, like that. So you need a quiet mind. You need to be concentrated. You can't be distracted. You can't be on your phone. Then you won't be Guan Yin anymore. Because if a child really needs your help and is calling for you, you won't be able to hear. Okay, so that's why Guan Yin does what she does.
Okay, I wrote on my notes, sustain concentration on one thought until what? Until silence or until?
Try it and let me know. Think of it this way. It's a way of purifying your mind.
Okay.
Think of it that way.
All right.
Yeah, like a sieve. You want to sieve out all the external things. Okay, Catherine, you had a question?
Yes, Dharma Master. Sorry, Dharma Master, can you go back one of your slide back? Because I wanted to ask one question from your 4 pairs, the earlier slide. Not this, another one more, please. Before this.
This one?
No, I think one of your side, I think also before this, you were talking about the view, the one something to do with the view.
This one?
Yes, a stream enterer. Here you
Okay.
said identify the view. I need some clarification here. When you talk of, because I understand in early Buddhism, you have the right view. You need to have the right view towards the word self or soul, because we have to understand that the self or the soul does not exist. Am I right?
Correct. Okay, hold on.
So
yes, continue, please.
Yeah. So if there's no soul, I mean, in early Buddhism, they're talking of no soul, emptiness, all this. And when a person pass away, right, they are supposed to be rebirthed straight away. Okay. So to connect the dot, when you were talking about this, so I was also thinking about how to relate this to the what they call setting up of these plaques for the disease. Here, I want to confine to Chao Tu only. I won't want to talk of other things, because setting plaques, there are many type of plaques to set up, you see. Okay, so now I want to talk of these improper views. Okay, so the view here on the self, once we, how to say, have the right view on the word self and soul, then we will have the right understanding, and we would not have this illusionary mind where it will give us a lot of problem or sufferings. Am I right? You have to transform your view, your mind on your understanding of the word self or soul. Because once you understand the self or the soul is impermanent, so we should not be attached to the view. Is it like the extreme views, improper views? Because of the attachment, of this word self. That's why we have so many views. And the views may not be views.
So your question is?
So my question is to transform our mind to change the perception of the word view. Would it be correct to embark on that?
Okay, it's to overcome this wrong view of thinking that the body and our thoughts, our body and our thoughts is not us. It's not so much an intellectual exercise, because you can only overcome this wrong view through when you become a first stage arhat or close. So until then, what we have to do is we have to look at it indirectly. For example, if the body falls sick, some people get really attached to the bodies and they try to maintain their youth or their looks, and their happiness becomes dependent on their body. So for a Buddhist, we have to understand that the body is impermanent. And so we can't overcome the fact that the body is not us, because if the body gets hurt, we feel pain. You know, so that's the reality, the conditioned reality that we are living in, like it or not. So the words may say on the sutra that, you know, the skandhas are not the self, are non-self, but it doesn't translate into our reality yet. So what we do is we temper our, we adjust our relationship with our body slowly by developing new habits, by coming to terms with aging of the body, that the body will eventually fall sick. And the other aspect is in terms of the practice, like I mentioned earlier, if you think that there's a you that goes on from life to life, then you become settled in a confidence of the personality which is going to disappear. And that leads to a wrong treatment of practice. Because you think you're going to remember, you think that just because you do something is going to be, is going to bear fruit, without understanding what carries on from life to life. So we may not be able to overcome the view of the five skandhas as non-self, but what we can do by having that understanding is that we can look at practice as a way to transform ourselves, because only our habits will carry forward. So we then understand that, oh, all the practice is about changing ourselves to embody the qualities that we want, rather than forcing ourselves. So then we look at practice differently. Instead of looking at practice on the form, we look at practice in terms of the spirit, in terms of what the practice is trying to help us achieve, rather than the practice itself. So precepts are a good example. So some people hold precepts, especially people who are new to Buddhism. When they first hold the precepts, they go home and they preach to people about becoming vegetarians. You know, they don't lie very, very strictly, to the point of sometimes causing afflictions to others. And they don't understand what the precepts are meant for. But then someone, after a few years, they may realize, oh, you know, if you're lucky, after a few years, they may realize, oh, precepts is about me being responsible, carrying out my responsibility to the people that I care for. Why? Because you don't want your loved ones to be around people who will harm them. You don't want your loved ones to be around people who will steal from them, who will cheat them. You don't want your loved ones to marry people who will become drug addicts. So because you are with your loved ones all the time, who are you to them? Then you realize, oh, from that point of view, you know, from a humanistic point of view, from a social responsibility point of view, from the responsibility of a father, of a son, of a daughter, a mother, a cousin, a grandson, granddaughter, grandmother, grandfather, the five precepts should be present in your dealings with them. Then when you realize that, you become transformed by the five precepts. You don't hold the five precepts, how you say, to the like a contract, but you hold it out of respect, care, compassion, and the wish for others to be happy, so that they can trust you You know, you don't cause them any anxiety, any suspicion. And then if you do that well and you create that new habit after many years, then in your next life, when you hold the 5 precepts again, you will hold it with the right view. But if you think that there's a you that goes on from life to life, and you think, oh, now I'm holding the 5 precepts, and then next life I will hold the 5 precepts again, without that prevents any proper understanding of the practice to develop, because you're counting on yourself. You're counting on an entity which is not going to be there in your next life. But what you can count on are the habits that you develop. That's the only thing that you can count on, not personality. Do you get what I mean? So
Yes, thank you, Dharma Master.
okay, so it's a very nuanced way of looking at the practice. Okay, so as for the question of what is 3 steps, 1 bow, Mr. Tai, I hope you don't mind if we will talk about that next week. Okay, and if I forget next week, please remind me. Okay, so it's now time.
Dharma
Excuse me.
Master, Isabella,
Excuse
you know,
me,
for
Dharma
the
Master.
sorry,
Yes,
the
Isabella.
temple story, I think I can talk about it next week because there's a huge update on what's going on, the real story. So Dharma Master, thank you very much that you followed up on that one. Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, bring it up next week. Because I remember you had some, you started with some questions about it in the chat group. Okay, all right. And let me see, and this slideshow, we have gone way over time. Just do dedication of merit. So I'm going to invite everyone to put our palms together while we dedicate merit. Oh, no, not this slide. Okay. May every living being, our minds as one and radiant with light, share the fruits of peace with hearts of goodness, luminous and bright. If people hear and see how hands and hearts can find in giving unity, may our minds awake to great compassion, wisdom, and to joy. May kindness find reward. May all who sorrow leave their grief and pain. May this boundless light dispel the darkness of our endless night. Because our hearts are one, this world of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise. Okay, we're going to do 3 bows to the Buddha. Okay, first bow. Second bow. Third bow. Half bow. Bowing respect to the Dharma Master. Second bow. Third bow. Half bow. Okay, everyone, I'm Mitofo. I'm very happy we had so many questions today, and we'll meet each other again next week. Okay, bye bye.
Thank you,
Amitabha.
Dharma Master.